It's something few would expect from such a young kid show, but Peppa Pig is actually one of the most mysterious cartoons out there today. Seriously, have you ever stopped to think about how many unanswered questions exist in the Little Pig's universe? Suzz Dad. One of those questions is, where is Susie Sheep's dad? She's Peppa's best friend and one of the characters who's gotten the most screen time over the years, which makes it really strange that the only known members of the Sheep family are Susie, Mummy Sheep, Granny Sheep, and Susie's cousin Charlotte. The fact that Daddy Sheep has never appeared all this time likely means he doesn't live with his daughter, but there are a few possible reasons for that. Maybe he passed away, something the show doesn't make clear because it's aimed at young kids. Or maybe he divorced Susie's mom and left. Another theory that makes sense is that Daddy Sheep is still married but lives in another country for a high-level job that provides for the family. That would explain why Mummy Sheep never looked for another partner, something that probably would have happened by now if her relationship with Susie's dad was really over. Also, in the episode Susie Goes Away, Mummy Sheep lands a job on the other side of the world and is super excited about it. But what if the real reason she's so happy is because her husband is working on the other side of the world too, and this is the perfect chance for them to live together again? If that's the case, we might find out soon, since we think even Daddy Sheep would want to visit baby Evie after hearing about her birth. And he might use that as an excuse to take time off work, travel back to the UK, and reunite with his wife and daughter. Wild to think about, right? And that's just the first of Peppa Pig's 10 biggest mysteries that are about to be solved. So grab your popcorn and get comfy, this is another Cinewave. Carol Cow. Did you know that Mrs. Cow has a daughter? Or at least she's supposed to. Her name is Carol Cow, and she shows up in the background of a few scenes next to Mrs. Cow. Since she's the same species as the two adults, it would make total sense that she's Mrs. Cow's daughter, and that Mr. Bull became her stepfather after marrying Carol's mom. But the strange part is, she's never had a real role. She never gets screen time or dialogue. Even in episodes that focus on Mrs. Cow, like her wedding, Carol only appears briefly in the background. It's almost like the creators forgot she exists. So the question remains, is she really Mrs. Cow's daughter? Another possible explanation for them showing up together is that Carol is actually related in a different way. For example, she could be her niece or cousin who lives in a nearby town and sometimes comes over to visit. Interestingly, the character was supposed to have an episode all about her, but it ended up getting canceled, which suggests that she is related to Mrs. Cow, either as her daughter or at least a close relative. Too many jobs. Miss Rabbit is easily one of the most important and recognizable characters in the whole show. She's constantly seen working in some kind of job. Cashier, bus driver, firefighter. We'd better stop here, or we'll be listing her jobs for the next 3 hours. And even after all these years with her getting so much attention, we still have no idea how this rabbit manages to work so many jobs at once. Honestly, there aren't enough hours in the day to cover all those shifts, and yet she still seems to have free time, since she also shows up at town events. It's no surprise that so many fans believe Miss Rabbit is some kind of supernatural entity that can manipulate time, which could explain how she can be in multiple places at once. So what do you think? Could she be way more than she lets on? Origin of the vegetables. It's easy enough to accept that this world is full of animals who act like people. That's totally normal in kids' cartoons. But how do we explain the fact that this world doesn't just have animals, but also humanoid vegetables like Mr. Potato and Super Potato? That's not even the weirdest part. The strange thing is that there are only a few vegetable characters in Peppa Pig, and all of them seem connected to the world of TV. The two we already mentioned are great examples. They have their own TV shows, and Super Potato even starred in a Hollywood movie. And the other veggie characters we see, well, they're actors too, like Hash Brown, who also appears in the Super Potato movie. So the existence of these creatures raises a lot of questions. Where did they come from? And where do they live when they're not shooting movies? And why are all the vegetable characters tied to showbiz and celebrity culture? The episodes featuring Super Potato are always fan favorites, and it's obvious he'll be back in Peppa Pig's future, which means that sooner or later, we're gonna learn more about him, maybe even his origin story. If you're as hyped as we are to find out, drop a hashtag potato in the comments below. Frozen clocks. When we're just having fun watching an episode, we usually don't pay much attention to little background details like, I don't know, clocks. But if you do happen to look closely, you'll notice something really weird. One of the hands is always pointing to the same position, right at 12 o'clock, no matter what time of day it's supposed to be, and this happens in every episode. And when we say clocks, we're not just talking about the one inside the pig family's house. We mean literally every single clock that's ever shown up in the entire show. The only exception is in the episode Cuckoo Clock, where the hands actually move like normal. With Peppa Pig's timeline being so confusing already, maybe this is a clue that time doesn't actually work the same way in their universe. Edmunds Intelligence. Most characters in Peppa Pig are pretty silly, even the grown-ups. Seriously, Daddy Pig once got himself stuck in cement, and he's supposed to be an engineer. So it's kind of fascinating that there's this one little boy who's the complete opposite. Super smart, even though he's the same age as George. Yep, we're talking about Edmund Elephant. Even though he's really young, he understands everything the adults say, while the other kids always need things explained. He even knows about gravity and dinosaurs, way more than George does, by the way. So is Edmund just a child prodigy, or is there something else going on here? Teddy's gender. While George has his Mr. Dinosaur, Peppa has her teddy bear. But it seems like the little pig boy knows more about his toy than Peppa knows about hers. He always says Mr. Dinosaur is a boy. Meanwhile, Peppa keeps switching Teddy's gender. Sometimes she calls Teddy a boy, other times she says Teddy's a girl. Even Daddy Pig gets confused by it. So it's hard not to question it ourselves. What actually is Teddy's gender? Okay, sure, it's, as far as we know, just a toy, and Peppa gets to decide if it's a boy or a girl. But why does she keep changing her mind in the first place? Most kids don't flip their opinions that easily. This mystery even has a theory that a lot of people believe, that Teddy has a life of their own and holds the souls of two children, one boy and one girl, which would definitely clear up the confusion. Same classroom. George is with Peppa all the time. Even though they argue once in a while, it's clear they love each other. But should they really be that close? Because, like, the two of them even go to the same class. That doesn't make any sense. George is way younger than his sister and should be in a totally different class with kids his own age. And yet he's there with Richard Rabbit and Edmund Elephant too, all in the same group. This whole weird setup has made a lot of fans think that the place where Madame Gazelle watches the kids is actually a daycare, but it's pretty clear it's more like an elementary school, since Madame Gazelle actually teaches the kids stuff instead of just letting them play. So it really makes no sense that three such little kids are in the same classroom as much older ones, who should be learning subjects that are way too advanced for the younger kids to even understand. Well, to be fair, Edmund Elephant is smart enough to be there. He's a genius. But maybe the real answer to this mystery is that George and Richard are prodigies too, and that's why they're in a higher level class. I mean, it's possible, but it's still kind of odd, since they act like totally normal kids most of the time. Then again, maybe they're just better at hiding their smarts than Edmund is. And speaking of intelligence, hitting that subscribe button is a genius move, because that way you won't miss any of our videos about your favorite cartoons. Adult names. One of the weirdest things in the Peppa Pig universe is that adults aren't called by their actual names like they would be in real life. Instead, they're called Mr. or Daddy for men and Mrs. or Mommy for women. That's already kinda strange, but it gets even more confusing. Uncle Pig is also called Daddy by his daughter and the others, and only Peppa and George call him Uncle. And Daddy Pig is called Uncle by Chloe. Peppa's cousin? Want us to make it even more confusing? Here's another question. Why does Aunt Dottie, Mummy Pig's sister, get to keep her own name instead of being called Auntie Pig, like Daddy Pig's brother's wife is? Animals. And on top of all that, there's the original mystery, the one that's been around since the very first episodes. If this universe is full of animals that walk and talk like humans, why do completely regular animals still exist? You can see them when Peppa and her friends visit the zoo, and there are also moments when the characters are casually having barbecues. So like, are they eating animals too? Well, maybe a pig from Peppa's family can't be considered the same species as a four-legged, non-talking pig. Even if they kinda look similar, they're clearly very different. Don't you agree? Want to keep having fun with us? Just click on one of the two videos we left for you on the screen. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!